Hello everybody and welcome. Hello everyone and welcome to the Rugby Chat brought to you by DrivingMaul. Hi, I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, a YouTube channel for this chat. Oh, I don't do that intro anymore, do I? No, that's the wrong intro. Do stick around. Lots of great comments, lots of great rugby chats to talk about. But yes, DrivingMaul is the best place for predictions and opinion. Rugby opinion, obviously. That's what we're talking about. So, let me bring Ashwin in. How you doing, sir?
Oh, I'm doing well. I'm in a warm room tonight, so yeah, happy. Apart from my antique laptop that I'm using, and hopefully it hangs in there for the whole show.
Let's hope so. I need to bring my camera, my microphone back. It's going spinning all over the place. There we go. So you might notice that I am a little bit more shady and a bit dark than usual. That's because
we're used to you being shady all the time.
Slim Shady. Shady. But that's because I'm by firelight tonight. I have decided to move my studio downstairs in the last basically 5 minutes because I have a fire going. And you never know, I might even show you the fire before the end of the show. Actually, with all these cables, that's probably not a good idea, but it's over there. Oops.
You can show the fireplace as we do the rolling credits, end credits.
Showing end credits, and I also drag my chair and stuff across the room. Cool. So, welcome to Rugby Chat, everybody. Hi, Christian, Jack, Andre, and all the guys in the live chat. Tonight, feel free to throw them in there. Obviously, if you use the dollar sign at the bottom to use Super Chat, obviously we'll definitely talk about your questions, but also you can talk about other questions. You can just whack questions in, and we'll take the best ones anyway. So let's kick off then. Ashwin, what was your moment of the round, the Super Rugby round 15?
Well, let's face it, I think most of us were expecting our moment of the Super Rugby round to come in Friday night's game, but it didn't. So, look, it's almost like we're on repeat. Brodie Retallick in the Chiefs game. He's just mammoth. I just love watching the big guy. And he looks like a smurf when he's going over for his try.
It's official. Ashwin likes big guys. There we go. Especially ones that are painted blue.
He likes smurfs.
Like Smurfs. He's not a Smurf. He's one of those things from Avatar. Just need that big long tail thing to attach to stuff. Anyway, that was cool. Yeah, he had a fantastic game. Absolutely. I'm going to go for the Jaguares on Sunday morning and their continued victories. That was very cool. So it's good to see them climbing up the table. And if they win their game in hand, they're only a point behind the Lions, and that's going to definitely shake the Lions up and make them pay attention. Their win at the weekend was key. And I guess that was the other thing about it was for me actually having a couple of games that I didn't get right. So a couple of predictions that were wrong. Now, normally I'd say that's a bad idea because, hey, it meant I didn't win the TV on the pump for prizes. But it does keep it interesting. Otherwise, it kind of get boring if it's just going to be the same old whole time around.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, look, if Brodie Retallick becomes illegal to be used as the moment of the week, for me, the Huggy Jaguares were the moment of the week after that, because it's like I think they're becoming everybody's second team, or a lot of people's second team. You like the way that they play, you like the passion that they have, and you want to see them carry on winning. And so every week it's just like, oh, yay, they won again.
So, from the chat, obviously, Chiefs Waratahs game was great. Jaguares win 6 in a row. So those are the two that we basically chose. And then Andre goes out and goes a bit left field and goes, moment of the round was the ease in which the Crusaders strolled past the Hurricanes. Unbelievable performance. I get where he's coming from. We're talking the top two teams and they made it look comfortable. But, yeah, not... one for the rugby purist, maybe, is how you might put it.
Oh, look, no, it was actually not a bad game. I think we're getting spoiled with some of the derby games, particularly in NZ, and there's just this quality to the game that's just pretty exciting to watch. But as I said, we're getting spoiled. But if you look at it with the conditions, it was a good old-fashioned sort of rugby game in the wet. Was Andre that mentioned it? It's like the Crusaders did actually win that quite comfortably.
Yeah, That's Andre that mentioned that one. So I guess one of the negative things of the weekend was 3 red cards, and for some stupidity by the players as well. It wasn't really very. Yeah, it wasn't. You're not going to complain about the red cards, but yeah, there was some pretty dumb play this weekend that led to those red cards, and we don't want to be seeing that from players. This is supposed to be one step beneath international.
You look. I think when we look at our sport, it's still young in terms of a professional sport. It's starting to obviously clock up the years now, but the reality is that if you're a coach, if you're in inverted commas, air quotes, the owner of the club, you'd want to be going around and whacking these players on the back of their heads with some of their dumb plays, because it's a professional sport. You shouldn't make dumb mistakes. You can understand you might make a silly mistake, but not a dumb mistake. And some of these heat of the moment type errors, red cards, yellow cards, are dumb mistakes. And when you're professional, you shouldn't be making them. It's a job. If we made them in our jobs, then we're questioned on them. And a rugby player is a professional worker. He should be pulled aside. And what's that about?
Yeah,
written warning, verbal warning.
With that bearing in mind, when is a ban not a ban?
Sigh.
Have you seen this?
Yeah, I did. Look, I mean, when is a ban not a ban? I think I can't remember if we alluded to it last week, or whether it's actually part of this week's. Which player was it? I can't remember. My mind's gone blank. Who's got? Oh, actually, Kung Fu Fighter for the Highlanders.
Oh yes,
he got 6 weeks, but 4 of those are in an international window, so he gets 2 weeks. It's just like, what the hell? When is a ban not a ban? You just get tongue tied with the frustration with the way that some of the bans are being handed down.
Yeah, and so I must admit I missed that one. I'd forgotten that he had to look up that one. So Sharks captain decided to put his shoulder in someone's head, basically, which kind of got him sent off and red card. Funnily enough, I mean, surprise, surprise. And so he admitted it, said very sorry, and submitted himself to the review committee, who decided that it was a 4-week ban. Now, 4-week ban sounds right, or sounds appropriate. It's not overkill. Perhaps a little high for that kind of for rucking. And we see some of the other things that have gone and got 2-week bans recently, for example. So from that point of view, you're kind of like, that's a bit on the high side. And then you realise he's going to miss. Well, as they say, he wasn't selected for the internationals, and so he may have missed some Super Sport Rugby Challenge games. Now, for most of those people in New Zealand, they'll be going, "What competition is that?" So, the Super Sport Rugby Challenge is what used to be called the Vodacom Cup, I believe. So that is basically in South Africa, they play a bit like we have the Mitre 10 Cup, but they play they have the Curry Cup, the same as the Mitre 10 Cup, but then they also have another competition that basically is the same size in the Curry Cup without their Super Rugby players playing at the same time during the Super Rugby season, and that's what used to be called the Vodacom Cup is now called the Super Sports Rugby Challenge. It's basically it's a level below Super Rugby, and to me those games should never count for bans, and they have actually said, I mean, they have stopped that now. So in bye weeks, for example, club games that used to get counted don't count for bans anymore, and I believe pre-season games don't count for bans, but somehow games of 3 halves still do, which is again wrong. But that was last year. I don't think we've got any people trying to use that this year yet. We've still got another round of rugby to go though.
It's simple, isn't it? Really, what they need to do, it needs to go back to being bans. The ban needs to be games, not weeks, and the ban needs to relate to the level of competition or above, not below. And that solves it, really. Yeah. I mean, so a game of 3 halves shouldn't count because it's not an official game.
Yes, but to be fair, following the rules you've just used, Botha is missing 4 international games. So it's the level or the level above. The fact that he wasn't selected for them and was never going to play them anyway, he is still technically missing 4 games.
4 games, yeah. Oh, look, you're always going to have an anomaly, I think, but out of what the options are, I think it's still the best of a bad situation in terms of games at that level or above, or you factor, they say, just games at that level. But then, if you've got someone who's gone and done some absolutely despicable level of foul play, do you really want them playing in a level above? Shouldn't that be a punishment as well?
Exactly. I mean, someone gets banned for 6 months for eye gouging. The last thing in the world you want to do is see them playing international rugby.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, good point. That's a good example.
So you can't go and do it that way. In football or in soccer in the UK, my understanding is I don't know if it's still that way, but one of the things they have done is that the bans count towards the competition that you're playing in. So you'll see these players who are banned for 4 games or 3 games will miss 1 game, play a European Champions Cup game, then be banned for 2 more Premiership games, which is just. It helps to rotate the player and give him some rest, I guess. But that's about it.
Which was going to happen anyway, most likely, isn't it? Because, I mean, let's face it, you look at some of the rugby competitions and the number of games that are played up in the Northern Hemisphere, and it's almost like...
This is in soccer, it's not in rugby.
Oh, soccer, sorry. But even in soccer, it's almost becoming like basketball, where there's like 2 to 3 games a week, and therefore there's no way that a player is going to play 2 to 3 games a week, so you are doing quite a heavy rotation.
Yeah, exactly. So it's all a bit crazy. Andre says, they check the internet. Well, they do check the international windows before and bias before sentencing, but this is ridiculous. Where players who aren't going to be selected for internationals have got away with 4 weeks of bans is crazy. And and for those of us who are trying to say that we are parochial Kiwis going anti-South Africans, we also agree that the Kung Fu fighting Highlander player should also be missing a proper 6 weeks, not just 2 weeks, and then and 4 rest weeks that he would have had anyway, because there's no way he was ever going to be playing international rugby.
And to be fair, I think the 2 of us in particular have been sort of mocking SANZAR's and New Zealand Rugby Union position on player safety and protecting the player when they make ridiculous judicial calls like 2 weeks for Moody and 2 weeks for Franks when they're attacking the players' heads. But we want to protect the player and, concussion and all that. Yeah, right.
Anyway, it's the inconsistency that really upsets us all.
Yep.
Again, World Rugby. Oh yes, this is a topic we haven't got on the list, but we should talk about. Nipplegate. Have you heard this one?
Well, I've heard that the new rule coming in, and although I'm not a fan of it, somebody explained to me a couple of days, actually Pierre, who joined us for the first time on our All Blacks edition a few weeks ago, and we were talking about it, and he pointed out some very obvious facts in the position that players will get into. How are you going to judge? How's the referee going to judge whether that deems to be a high tackle because it was below the level of his nipples when the fact that his chest was below his hips? Sort of scenario. And it's just like, ooh, I hadn't thought of that. That's a good point, because the reality is most rugby players aren't going to be top level rugby players if they're running in a very upright fashion. They're going to be crouching in some manner as they either approach a tackle or even if they're running downfield. So their nipple line is going to be varied.
Yes, the nipple line is going to be varied anyway because people do have different nipple levels. But anyway, now we're expecting that most obviously professional rugby players will be rather pert, but there are some there are some some gentlemen in the club game who may be a bit more, who may be sagging a bit more. Anyway, sorry.
You're going to want to select your older members of the team because they're going to have saggier boobs, and therefore their nipple line is going to be lower.
Man boobs we're talking about here, by the way, it's very clear.
Yes, absolutely.
But
no, we're being sexist by only talking man boobs. Just saying.
Well, maybe. But so there are for a little known fact that this rule has been trialled before. Can you remember which competition it's been trialled in?
I thought it was just trialled recently in competition. I don't know which it was. I just recently finished. So no, I'll have to say no. Okay,
so 2 years ago, they had this law in pro rugby over in the USA, and they actually had a red line on the players' jerseys to indicate where the average nipple would be. So that the referee had got a gauge as to where the line was. So I guess that's going to be part of it. Do teams with hooped jerseys have an advantage or have a disadvantage now or an advantage as to telling where the height of these tackles are? Now, I don't know. So Georgia, who are playing for actually, do Georgia? No, Georgia don't have hoops. But if Japan are playing in the under-20s, I'm trying to think whether I don't think they're in this year. Then yes, that's also about it. Shard NZ, short players may finally have an advantage. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Trying to go back and be actually a bit more serious about some of this stuff. Obviously, they brought the new tackle laws in around striking the head and how it all becomes a yellow card. And you're like, well, let's be honest. When the forwards in particular are bashing away at the try line, they're pretty much head nose diving straight into the grass anyway. So how do you avoid the head? And
the best example was Chiefs Crusaders game where was it Lachlan Boshier? You know, the players. I can't remember which player, the Crusaders player, was diving at the line, and you haven't got much of a target zone when the player's diving at the line. If we took him as being a full Superman position, there is no way you can tackle the player because his head's in line with his nipples, in line with the rest of his body. Where you can't tackle him.
You can't. And I think what we've seen is that referees basically are ignoring the head contact tackle rules when players are diving for the try line, on the whole. And if you are going to put yourself in a horizontal position and charge head first, then if your head makes contact with somebody, then you've got to take some responsibility for that.
Yeah, but see, here's the problem, right? And that comes back to a comment that you made just not too long ago. It's consistency, because we go back to the incident I'm talking about, and the referee decides to have a look at it, and Lachlan Bosch is in the bin. But as you say, generally a referee's not looking at it, but that's that problem with the consistency. And then for the players to know and to understand what's going to happen and what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do. And they really don't know.
No, they don't. And Japan are in the under-20s.
I was just Googling it. I was trying to look at it.
Championship. Christian, thank you for that. Apparently they're playing New Zealand in the opening round, in the opening game. Now, quick free tip for you there. New Zealand are going to win that one. They obviously play in hoops, so that's going to give the referee an idea as to where that nipple line is, and he's basically going to choose the stripe that's closest to there and use that. All the other teams who have, like New Zealand, a solid black jersey, it's going to be much more harder for him to decide where that line is, and so we may see that obviously New Zealand are going to are going to object to any line being put on for the blackest of most black ever jerseys. But we'll have to see if that becomes part of the part of the laws, that you have to have a stripe across your jersey to show the referee where the appropriate height is.
The referee could get confused with anybody but the All Blacks in terms of New Zealand teams, because they're going to have 3 stripes on their shoulder.
You've lost me on this one.
Well, if we're talking about stripes and where they're being struck, it's like, oh, hey, look, there's nipple lines on his shoulder.
The 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, the Adidas stripes.
The Adidas stripes.
Oh, come on.
Dearie me. Oh, God.
Calling it back to seriousness.
Absolutely. Bring it all the way back to seriousness. Now, sorry, I am going to take how about you just do a little ad break as to how people should subscribe and all that kind of stuff while I throw a log on the fire.
Throw another log on the fire. So, let's remember, if you're listening on your podcast, remember to put it, having it subscribed so you can have it coming directly to your favourite podcast. There's the thumbs up and the likes, etc., the stars. Make sure you do that so that we got lots of people liking our stuff. I did an awesome ad.
You're fantastic. Loving your work, sir. Loving your work. So yeah, that's Nipplegate. We'll see how it pans out, and we do need to protect the players. We do need to look at player welfare, but I think that one of the studies showed that the players, it's the tackling player who generally gets head knock more frequently than the ball carrier. And I'm not seeing any new rules or any regulations around what the ball carrier can and can't do as to sort of leading elbows, leading arms, that kind of stuff, and also raising knees, because that's actually where most of the head knocks and most of the concussions happen. So it's going to be interesting to see if they actually bring in some laws at some point around how players can carry the ball rather than how players can rather than just purely on the tackling side.
Look, it's basically out of question too. I mean, there's what we're basically saying. There's a few sides to it. We want to see consistency in terms of the bans and how people are dealt with at judicial level. Obviously, with Nipplegate, you're wanting. It's debatable whether it's actually needed, personally, because the reality is that it was below the shoulders anyway. If that is ruled consistently, then you don't need to keep dropping that tackle line level. And then, in terms of what you've just alluded to, the fact is that it's actually the tackle-E, the tackler, not the tackle-E, that's actually getting concussed more consistently, which actually, and then if you have a look at it, the reason is because real poor tackle technique. And, that's what they have to address, is that why is a professional rugby player getting his head in the wrong position? It's just crazy. It comes back to what we were talking about before in terms of dumb decision making on the field or doing stupid things. You're a professional athlete. These are your bread and butter type things that you shouldn't be getting wrong. And tackle technique is one of them, is that you shouldn't be getting your head in the wrong place. And they probably have to do more work around that as well.
Totally agree. There is definitely an element there that they need to get that sorted out. I guess one of the counter arguments would be that the game now is played at such a pace that do you have the chance to set yourself and be in position to make tackles properly? I remember not that long ago when I tried to step back into the game, 7 or 8 years ago now, and play a game of sevens. We had a quick little tackle practice of basically kneeling on the ground, someone running into your shoulder. I tried to make one tackle during the actual game, just got brushed off. So I'm not sure how whether nowadays whether players get themselves set properly for a lot of their tackles. Yeah,
again, but that comes down to technique, isn't it? I mean, and the fact is that if you, one of the things that you talk about in sport these days is muscle memory, and really, so therefore, it's about the numbers. So you've got to do in training. You've got to do your tackle bag numbers or live tackle training numbers to start to get that muscle memory type concept happening so that you get into the right positions and you can, as you said, with the speed of the game, you can react quicker, etc. Yeah. One of my favourite parts of playing rugby was tackling. I love tackling.
Well, I used to love chuckling when I was like 12. Once I made it into my 30s, less fun, and now I'm in my 40s. Forget it. No, touch is only for me. Actually, on that note, I need to find a touch team for the summer season. Andre says, easy to get wrong archway players are constantly moving, and 5 centimetre on the inside means a hip bone against the head, instant concussion. So yeah, there are narrow margins, but we are talking professional players who are used to working with narrow margins or within narrow margins. So, question 4, even though it's labelled question 3 in our notes. Should SANZAAR be talking to fans more, or are they right to leave it to the national associations?
Oh, look, I think we've talked about this before. I don't think on air, but just between ourselves, is that rugby really? Hey, look, it's a theme of today's show. Professional sport for 20 odd years, still learning what professional sport is, because their marketing for rugby is pretty much abysmal, really, when you compare it to professional sports that have been going for a long time. Obviously, nobody does it better than the Americans. Basketball's probably at the top of the game, top of the list in terms of how they market and they access and they approach their fan base. There is nothing stopping SANZAAR from doubling up in terms of engagement with the fans, even if the national associations are doing it. So basically the answer to that, yes, SANZAAR should be talking to the fans. National unions should be talking to their fans. Everybody involved in rugby should be talking to their fans a hell of a lot more than they are.
Yeah, at the moment, SANZAAR only ever comes out to rebuttal suggestions that someone's going to leave the competition, it seems, or to say...
judicial panel's good.
Or, yeah. And even that generally comes out from the National Associate. Well, I think so. Anyway, so they don't seem to... There does seem to have been an element of, right, sounds like your job is to organise the competition, but the local associations, basically New Zealand Rugby, Rugby Australia, and South African Rugby, whatever those ones are called, basically have taken on the responsibility of marketing it internally. They say, no, we know our fans best. No, don't talk to them for us. The problem that's led to is that I don't think the organisations, or the individual organisations, don't necessarily have the same views and the same drivers that SANZAAR have. SANZAAR is about trying to keep this competition together and keep it expanding and bringing in money, whereas New Zealand Rugby is about the All Blacks playing well. And that means that they have a different focus, and their media, marketing, and everything has a different focus, and it's all aimed at the All Blacks. It's not aimed at necessarily SANZAAR. Andre says SANZAAR are constantly getting it wrong. Some consultation with people out there would do wonders.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
I think it's follow up on your comment, but I thought you were going to go back on what I was saying.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, no, I wasn't going to go back. I was just going to say, the best example is, obviously, as you said, New Zealand Rugby is focused on the All Blacks. We've talked, again, something that I think we've talked about off air, not necessarily on air, and the fact that that's to the detriment of the game in New Zealand, we believe. But I think SANZAAR, that's one thing for them, but it's not as bad as all the South African teams talking about going off to Europe. When you've got, realistically speaking, SANZAAR should be going out there and waving the rah-rah flags for their own competition and saying what a great competition it is and promoting it and etc. to try and mitigate the conversations within the Republic for the fact that every Super Rugby team is going to be playing in some European competition.
So Andre says, how about a 1 month poll to determine what the people want? Okay. The problem with that is that what the people want isn't necessarily financially viable, and that's where New Zealand Rugby actually has done a good job in the fact that they do put the All Blacks first. That's the main reason for that is that all the money that comes into the game is from the All Blacks. All the other sponsorship money at Super Rugby level is really charitable. It's just charity money. The companies do not make money out of this. And something we were talking about the other night. So the Blues, the franchise with the biggest market in New Zealand, a quarter of New Zealanders live in Auckland. And one of their main sponsors is a potato grower. Right.
Hey,
And we're not
but
talking
to
McCain
be-
oven chips here.
Look, but just to be clear, quality potatoes. Don't want, just in case the Urabana's watching.
Oh, don't get
Quality
me wrong.
potatoes.
I love Haribana potatoes, and I love the fact that I
you
used to
love Haribana potatoes.
I loved it when they would give you a free 5 kg bag of them from the game. They are good potatoes, don't get me wrong, but they're not exactly Morgan Stanley, are they? They're not, or they're not. They're not they're not Coca-Cola. They're not.
You're not Coke.
They're not Ford Motorsports. They're not. At the end of the day, they're not a big corporation with serious money that is that's backing this. They're a family company based out of Pocono, who actually in the Chiefs franchise area, amusingly enough, but and basically, yeah, they're not big money at the end of the day, and they're doing it because they enjoy rugby and they want to support the local rugby team, not because they're going to make because it makes marketing sense.
Now, look, I mean, in one of the things that I've always sort of struggled with the concept in terms of the fact that Sanzar as a body should be going to someone like Coca-Cola that's a global presence, and therefore it is the Coca-Cola Super Rugby competition, as opposed to in New Zealand it's X Super Rugby competition, in Australia it's the Y Super Rugby competition, and in South Africa it's the Z Super Rugby competition. It's the same Super Rugby competition, but called something different in each country. Whereas you go get a true global sponsor, and it would make a lot more sense in calling it the Coca-Cola Super Rugby competition in 3 countries.
Yeah,
or 4.
And that also probably makes it more confusing as well, because country boundaries are breaking down. They don't really exist anymore, folks. With this whole social media thing,
globalization world.
Exactly. One of the biggest places for viewers over the last couple of weeks has been Argentina, because I've been doing post-match reactions to the Jaguares games, and there's a lot of interest at the moment in Argentina for a successful team. And here we are, based in New Zealand, speaking in English, so not even in their language, and still one of the bigger audiences that I've been broadcasting to has been Argentina. So, yeah, these national boundaries just don't exist anymore as far as marketing really goes. If you're going to be, and so hence, as you say, putting in these local names doesn't work.
Yeah. Vamos.
Oh, thank you, Jack. So Jack's decided, as it says, the Investec, Vodacom, and Vodafone competitions around the world. So there we go. So 2 phone companies and an investment company.
Hey, look, and I think just in terms of, I think it was Andre that was alluding to the fact of that, finding out, have surveys with the fans. Here's the tricky thing, or not tricky thing. Here's the reality of the situation. When we're talking about fan engagement, it's a faux fan engagement. It's really just getting in your fans' faces and saying, "We're here. Look at us. We're great. This is a fantastic competition." Rah, rah, rah. That's what it's all about. It's not necessarily actually genuinely going out there and saying, "So, Andre, Jack, and Christian, how do you feel about the Super Rugby competition? What improvements could we make?"
I think, but I say, so if using social media as a guide, I think if Sansa was to ask the fans, "What do you want?" they'd all go Super 12s, please, because there's rose-tinted glasses. That was supposed to be the best one.
That was the greatest era.
Here we go. So obviously that means we throw out the Jaguares, we throw out the Sunwolves as well, which have been 2 of the better stories this season. To be fair, so there's definitely an element of that what the fans want isn't necessarily what they really should be getting. A bit like Jobs used to say, Steve Jobs, that he never asked anyone what products they wanted from Apple, because he told them what they wanted. He had a better idea than they did. So I'm not sure that a fan survey would be a good idea personally.
No, as I say, that's why it's really it's an engagement that makes it feel like the fans being listened to, but the reality is it's all about the fireworks, the excitement levels, and pushing your product out there and making everybody think like that's what they want. Doing what Steve Jobs did and telling people what they want.
Yeah, but we're really stumbling onto question 5 rather than question 4, because this one's more about the thing. I think that the competition itself, that Sanzar needs to stand up for itself a lot more. The problem is it doesn't really exist. Sanzar isn't an entity in itself. Sanzar is a collection of 4 organisations now with Argentina involved, but that they have to then make the decisions. A bit like World Rugby. World Rugby doesn't exist. World Rugby is a group of countries who have different numbers of votes depending on how long they've been playing rugby for.
You're talking about the IRB.
The IRB, that's right. World Rugby. So again, it's not a entity in itself, and it's a group. It does what the group of its constituents want it to do. If we compare that to how the American sports are run, so you have the NFL, NBA, etc. You'll hear about fines being handed down from time to time and teams getting told off. Those teams never go to court or never threaten legal action or appeal these things, because they know that actually what the appearance, at the very least, of good governance is worth 10 times more than whatever they'll lose through paying off a fine, and that they listen. Whereas in the UK, as soon as there were salary cap issues, the clubs were talking about taking the Aviva Premiership to court. It was stupid. You're destroying the game, and it's a very short-term view by the club, and so that's the kind of thing. Whereas, and I say again, we have too many countries, we have too many clubs that are thinking of themselves rather than what is actually good for all of us for the long term.
You look. I mean, you look at rugby in our southern hemisphere. You look at rugby in the northern hemisphere. There's a lot of club interest, and the reality is that they don't realise it's like, okay, a salary cap there is there to make the teams level. If the teams are level, you actually have a better competition and there's more interest in the competition. If you don't have a salary cap, you're going to have a club that goes and pays everybody $1.5 million a year each and has the best players in their team, and nobody's going to beat them, and then nobody's going to watch it, and you don't have a competition. The other thing on that is the best example you can have at the moment, not necessarily a great one, and one that Trump fans will absolutely hate, or Trump haters will hate, I should say, is obviously what's happening with American football, in the fact that the whatever you want to call the governance layer has mandated that any player who takes a knee or sits during the national anthem or doesn't sing the national anthem, whatever they're supposed to do, will be fined or will not have a contract. And all the owners of the clubs have come on board. And you've got to, when you look at the number of clubs there are, there's got to be one owner that's going to say, no, I agree with the players protesting and their right to free speech and that. But they haven't. But they've all come on board, haven't they?
No, they haven't. One of the owners has come out and said that I will pay the fines for anyone who takes the knee.
Yeah, right. But it's you got one owner, but in with how many others that are saying that we know, because when it first happened, there were a number of owners that said, I back my players. And that's all of a sudden flipped, hasn't it? So you're saying that there's only one owner left that will actually stand by his players now?
I've heard yes, he was one of the ones that actually stood with his players, linked arms during last season. I must say, I'm not following it too closely. I just happened to spot that one on social media.
Right.
That he was saying. So I don't know what the stances of all the other
owners are.
All the other owners are. But yeah, I know that in this case, and it is the exception rather than the rule, though, that one of the owners has stepped out of line and said,
Yep.
I sorry, but I'm going to back this. And I understand why he's doing it. There's both from a social, moral point of view, but also from an economical point of view as well. He has various sponsors he needs to keep as well for his club, and so hopefully it is just purely from the moral point of view. But I can also see that yes, there are sponsorship issues as well that some of these clubs might need to be wary of, as we've seen with the Israel Folau thing going on as well. Anyway, it was kind of wasn't it kind of telling that soon after Israel Folau came out and made one of his comments, that not long afterwards, Curtly Beale got suddenly became a Range Rover or Land Rover Range Rover ambassador. I wonder how they freed up the budget for that one.
They started selling more cars.
Oh, totally, absolutely. They suddenly found that yes, or suddenly the rugby fan base was buying more and more cars, and that yes, I think they might have removed somebody off the books. So it kind of, I guess, just come on from this one. But does New Zealand Rugby care about the fans' match day experience, or is it all about TV and sponsors?
Oh, look, as a rugby fan in this country, I do feel that the NZRFU has really forgotten about their true fans. It is about the dollar, it is about the sponsors and all that sort of thing. I don't agree with some of the direction that the New Zealand Rugby Union's taking, and I sort of think that there's, I suppose, their view is that they're trying to make hay while the sun shines, because maybe they know that eventually one day the All Blacks aren't going to be at the top of the tree. If professional rugby goes the way that every other professional sport goes, you will not be able to keep all your All Blacks at home, and then it'll be a case of whether you'll have access to them from overseas.
Now, straight away here, I don't believe that actually supporting and engaging the match day players necessarily means spending lots more money or doing it a lot or doing things very differently. To give you some ideas as to a league that's just set up, so Major League Rugby in the USA. So for the Seattle Seawolves have they've only got I think their ground here holds 5,000. So look, it's not a big ground, but for their three or four home games they've had this season, they've sold out every single game. They've sold out all their season tickets as well. After the first game, the owner came out and said, "We understand we made some mistakes. We've not made mistakes. We've learned some things from our first game. So for the second game and onwards, there'll be more food trucks. There'll be more this. There'll be more that. More the other." And he came out and listed the things where their match day experience hadn't been perfect on day one and how they're going to improve it. Another one of the franchises also came out and said something similar. Here's the stuff that's wrong, that isn't up to scratch from our first game. We're going to improve the first three in the next game. The other ones will improve over the season, and we're working on them. You never hear anything like that come out of any of the Super Rugby franchises at all. The Sunwolves have 1,500. Sorry, not the Sunwolves. The Seawolves have 1,500 season ticket holders, and after their second game, they phoned every single season ticket holder and asked them for their views on how they'd done in the first two games. Have you ever had a phone call from the Blues?
No, not at all. And in fact, quite the reverse in this year and last year, in fact, is that as a season ticket holding member of actually getting less than somebody who pays less for their season ticket. So my fan experience is actually diminished.
Yeah, they've moved because they've gone and moved the ownership, the members' rooms and all that kind of stuff. So it's just not accessible anymore.
No, it's so if you buy a Rugby First ticket, what have I got? I've got a Rugby First, which includes All Blacks and Blues and NPC, and then you, as a Blues fan, you can just buy a True Blues pass. A True Blues supporter will get free gifts. Pays $120, I think, a year. I pay something like about $350, $400 a year, and I don't get a gift anymore. It's small. It's not a big thing. I don't buy a season ticket to get a gift, but it's just wrong.
It is wrong. You're right, and that's so they're not doing that. If you look at the NRL, the teams work together off the pitch, but they compete on the pitch, and they have a combined. I don't feel that coming from the Super Rugby franchises, and it's definitely not across between countries. As well, one of the things that the Major League Rugby is saying is you have to either own your stadium or have control of the stadium, and I think that's one of the big problems we have in the way that Southern Hemisphere rugby is set up is that none of the organisations own their stadium, so they have limited control over what they can do. One of the things that that the Blues had, they used to have a ship on some, or they had a trailer that looked like a ship, didn't they? They had Captain what's his name messing around with it. Who? Sorry,
Bluebeard.
Bluebeard. There we go, Captain Bluebeard. And then Eden Parked around and said, "Oh, sorry, you're not allowed to take it on the pitch anymore." And so suddenly they've got this Bluebeard trailer boat that they wanted to use during sort of half time and pre-game, and Eden Park said, "Sorry, you can't drive it on the pitch because it'll damage the grass." And that kind of stuff doesn't help. If you do kind of feel that kind of there isn't the cooperation between the stadium owners and the organisations to get a better product out there for the fans. Whereas,
look, I mean, even in that sense, I mean, one of the things that most of the rugby fans want to see is, back in the day, you used to see like an under a Colts game, the Bees game, and then you went into the main game sort of thing. And people want to come along and watch those early games, but there's just no early games anymore. And the occasional time where they have a curtain raiser, it finishes the sort of 2 years before the main game starts. And so you're now twiddling your thumbs for a mass amount of time waiting for the main event.
And this is farcical. Eden Park has got the
outer oval.
The outer oval, which is behind one of the stands, so the teams could easily warm up on the outer oval. They don't have to warm up on the actual pitch itself. They could warm up on there, go back into the changing rooms, and come out straight after the other game had finished. We're going to take another commercial break while I fix the fire.
And remember, while you're listening, while you're watching, to click the likes, pick the stars, 5 stars, because there's other stars available. But why would you want to? Also, if you're listening on your listening to a podcast, make sure you subscribe so that it automatically ends up in your favorite app. Hey, I'm getting better at this. And here's Paul.
You know what's great is when you see someone laughing at their own jokes.
Nobody else is going to laugh at them.
Very true. I'm going to have to listen back to the recording to see what you've been saying while I've been dashing off, staking the fire. Oh, dear me. So, totally. Yeah, so basically, we don't believe that the New Zealand Rugby and the actual also Super Rugby franchise themselves don't really care about or not making much effort into the match day experience, really. Getting a bunch of dancers to dance in the middle of the pitch when there's just 12 of them and we're on an oval pitch like you get at Eden Park. They're so far away, whatever.
Well, the most stupid thing about that is like, okay, look, some people do like the cheerleaders, but why not do it like the American colleges and have the cheerleading squads that like will throw each other in the air and actually do acrobatics and the like, which will, and do that sort of thing. And you've got a mixed squad, so you're keeping the PC brigade happy. But it is actually entertaining. I mean, there's a whole competition around cheerleading squads now, as opposed to just some people in pom-poms and doing some pretty basic nightclub dancing on the field.
Yeah, and I do enjoy. I think we also need to have different culture, different character of the different at the different places. I like the fact that in the Major League Rugby already, one of them has the NOLA, so New Orleans, have got themselves a little brass band in the stand because hey, NOLA being in New Orleans jazz, let's have a bit of music going on between things. So yeah, I love the cowbells down in Hamilton. Yeah, exactly. I'm one of the few because it's different. It's not the same as going to a different place as all the other places. I like the idea of the zoo. I want to buy a onesie. I want to go down to Hamilton, down to Dunedin, and stand in the zoo in my onesie just because it's different.
It's different.
The one Meisterstein Cup team I really want to go to but unfortunately I think they don't do it anymore, is the Manawatu Turbos, and I want to get a green bucket and wear that on my head. Because
no, they still do that. The old bucket heads still turn up. Yep, with the green bucket.
When's the last time you were in Manawatu for a game?
I don't think I've ever been down there.
Right, road trip.
Road trip.
I like that difference. I like to have something that's unique. Have a bit of and not having it just being just like every other ground in the country.
The irony is that when you look at it through New Zealand rugby, the 3/4 major provinces, the major teams, in terms of size, let's call it, not necessarily success, but they're the most boring.
Yes.
You'll pick out whether it's the Crusaders or Canterbury, Wellington or the Lions, Auckland or the Blues. You go along to the game and you sit there and you clap politely, and that's about it, really.
Yeah, I much more enjoy going down to a counties game than an Auckland game.
Because on a nice rainy night you can slide down that hill in the mudslide. Awesome. I splash out when I go to there, and I do buy a stand ticket. So the only bit that's covered. But the ground's the right size. You feel people are there because of the actual real rugby. Whereas Eden Park, you could be 10 seats away from somebody else and sit on your own and have a whole section to yourself, because it's a 40-odd thousand people size stadium. They only open up one stand. Maybe you should shower before you go to the game, mate. Just saying.
Well, you see, that's the great thing about being down in Pocono for the counties. They're all farmers. They don't.
Pukekohe.
Pukekohe, not Pocono. Pukekohe, sorry. Oh dear. No, I'm looking forward to being a season ticket holder for the in Taranaki. So I might have to get myself a yellow and black jersey. The problem is that it's too cold to wear it anyway, or you do wear it, but it's under so many layers, no one ever sees it. So
no, that's why you get a XL or double XL, so you can put it over the top of your jacket.
True. Now, Swan Dry, if you're watching, really, really, really need Swan Dry. Yellow and black Swan Dry with the logo on. You already do a blue and black one. You already do a red and black one. So yeah, you've got Auckland, you've got Canterbury sorted out. You've got a green one as well. You've got Manawatu sorted. But come on, let's get those. Nice cup.
I'm sure I've seen yellow and black Swan Dries. I'm sure I've seen them.
This is something I've investigated seriously and in depth. They make green and black, red and black, and blue and black.
Yeah. How about that? We've moved on to Swan Dries.
So there we go. Jack, is the stand fixed yet in Taranaki yet? No, it's not. So I don't think they'll be opening up the earthquake danger stand.
You got to get your accreditation so you can go do some investigative journalism and go find out when they're planning to get that stand opened up again.
Okay, I will try and get a credit. So I'll send them an email tomorrow. There we go. How's that? Andre, I can wear that B jersey, Paul. Oh, dear me.
Thinking B.
It's a bull. It's not a bee. Jeez, it's not. This isn't. What's it? Buzzy bee. It's not a buzzy bee. Anyway, in Kiwi jokes for you, brought to you by an Englishman.
Yeah, exactly, for our foreign friends.
So, I didn't copy the list of games into the notes. Are you aware of the games this weekend, or should I read them out to you?
No, I think we do what we've been doing recently. And are we going to go through to a prediction, or
no? We're going to say
our game of the round.
What are you looking forward to this week? Do you know what they are, or shall I read them out to you?
No. I know the game.
You know the games, okay?
Yeah, because the Crusaders are playing the Chiefs.
Okay, so that we get Arshwin to get the right way round, I'll read them out to the people, for those of you listening who don't know them all. Go. So, Highlanders versus the Hurricanes, Blues versus Rebels, Chiefs versus Crusaders, not Crusaders, Chiefs, Reds versus Tars, and Brumbies versus Sunwolves. So, what are you looking forward to this weekend?
Under 20s starting. Chiefs,
I guess all that effort.
Chiefs Crusaders. I think it'll be an interesting. That'll be just hope that the weather's holding out at the moment. Weather's looking good. As long as the weather's good, then I think we should get a good battle out there in Hamilton. Obviously, there's a couple other good games happening too, isn't it? You just mentioned the Highlanders Hurricanes, even the Reds Waratahs, because Reds Waratahs they usually end up being pretty dire games to watch in terms of quality, but let's face it, they really hate each other and they like smashing each other up, which is like what we like to see from Australians.
Highlanders Canes under the roof. None of this messing around with water stuff that falls from the sky. So that's going to be good in the Tupperware container, obviously. So looking forward to that one. I do like. I don't think I think the Highlanders are struggling a little bit at the moment. So I don't give them much of a chance. But yeah, that should be a cracker on Friday night. Just trying to quickly find the table, the current standings, because as you say, Reds versus Tars, where it is. So the Tars are on 31 points, Rebels on 30. Blues versus Rebels. Can the Blues actually string together 5 masters to get a win?
I'll throw out my classic predictions line, Blues by 20. and this time it should be real.
So it's definitely between the Tars and Rebels in that conference. So with only 1 point in it, the Tars are going to really want that win over the Reds. But you say that's going to be a scrappy affair. One for the rugby purist maybe, and then can the Rebels get over the Blues, because that's going to be big. With just 1 point in it, that's going to be big. Interesting that. So here's the Rebels. So the Rebels have a -6 points difference at the moment. The Waratahs, 1 point ahead of them, have a plus 53 points difference. Slight
the variation there.
The slight variation there, yes. And it's what you're seeing is that all those bonus points Rebels picked up early in the season really have counted towards them here. They've got five try winning bonus points from their 6 wins. Is pretty impressive stuff for them. Unfortunately, getting only 1 losing bonus point from 6 losses shows that they get absolutely stuffed if they don't win.
They throw their toys out of the cot when they're losing. No, I want to play. I'm going home.
Yes, the Blues are at home.
Blues are at home. Yep. It's 5:00 kickoff, by the way, for those people. So don't turn up at 7:30 and turn on. Where's the Blues?
This is the family game of the season.
Oh, geez, it drives me insane. This is like long weekend, and we put a Blues game on at Eden Park.
So
I won't be there.
You won't be there?
No.
Off camping in this nice cold weather?
Yeah, nah. My holiday house up in the Hamptons.
Oh, fabulous! Very nice. Oh dear me. So, not a bad show for one where we didn't have any questions or any ideas what we're going to talk about until about half an hour before the show. I think pretty good.
Well, it's sort of we're hitting a bit of a spot where we're really waiting for that international season to kick off, and then obviously once the internationals are over, it's serious time in the Super Rugby, isn't it? Because it's like the last few games, jockeying for position for the ones that are in the finals, and seeing whether they can finish higher up the ladder or manipulate a position to play the Tars. And so that's really, it's sort of in a holding pattern at the moment.
It is a bit of a holding pattern. Really looking forward to the international window, especially South Africa. So South Africa, England is going to be a good tour, and then Australia, Ireland should be a good tour. New Zealand, France. If the All Blacks don't win it 3-0, then it's a bit of a joke, really. Let's be honest. But anyway, but Arthur and I will be back hopefully with Steve from Cornflakes Crib tomorrow night to talk all things All Blacks, and maybe we can get Arthur to wear his All Blacks jersey. Never know. Anyway, either way, he'll say he's wearing it, and he'll be wearing a coat over the top, so we won't be able to see it anyway because it's just so cold in New Zealand at the moment.
And I'll be up this close to the camera, and so you won't be able to see anything.
So come on, Andre. Dear, come on, Ashwin. Let people know they can talk to you about rugby outside of the between.
So you could find me at NZ Fatso on Twitter, and we can talk about all things rugby and politics, and I'll see you there.
I've been Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, your best place for Twitter predictions and opinion. Don't up for rugby chats. Go leave your comments down below. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, all of that lovely stuff. And if you do want to have an email once a week from me with all of my stuff in it, then do check out the pinned comment below, because the link's right there. Enjoy whatever rugby you're watching, and do join us tomorrow night for the All Blacks rugby. The DrivingMaul All Blacks edition.